So welcome everybody. Welcome to Daily Intimacy. Thanks for being here. It's been so wonderful to gather like this every morning. I just feel really personally very held by the routine and the ritual and by all of your energy that you bring to this. And all of the speakers that we've had have just been incredible. So I have decided to continue this on a weekly basis, and that timing will be Tuesday mornings at 9 a.m. I figured get us off to a good start in the morning, in the week, and take the skills that we learn on Tuesday morning and take them with us through the week, and then check in again a week later. So I'm really excited about that and lining up some more wonderful speakers for you and for us. And so I did put the registration link here just to make it easy for you in the chat to register. Because of Zoom, you have to keep registering, but this link is for like the entire year of 2020. So that'll be the only time you have to do it. And yeah, so I'm really hoping to keep this going and just kind of keep the energy going. They've been really supportive. All right, so I'm going to invite you to have a breath and gently close your eyes. And another deep breath in all the way down into the belly, and see if you can extend that breath a little bit further. Bring the breath up to the heart and exhale. And this time as you breathe in, I invite you to breathe up through the soles of the feet. So bringing the breath up from the feet, up the spine, the heart, and exhale back down. And a couple of breaths like that. Bringing the breath up from the earth now, up all the way to the crown of your head if you can make it. And exhale back down. And each time you breathe in, I invite you to gather more of the earth's energy. So you might breathe in from the surface of her body, bringing that into your body. And on the next breath, a little deeper in, about a foot or two down into the earth, breathing that energy in, bringing it into your body, nourishing you, supporting you, and exhale, release. And keep going until you're 4 or 5 feet in, maybe deeper. So it's almost like one breath. The earth breathes and expands. You do the same. And you exhale together. And then I invite you to bring your attention to the sky above. And imagine this morning that there's a beautiful being, maybe an angel or a spirit guide, or whatever comes into your imagination is right for you. And that's above your head, maybe 4 or 5 feet as well. And breathing the light down from that being that's there supporting you and holding you solidly. Bring that energy in and support yourself and feel supported. And then take a breath from earth all the way up to that being above your head, so that the energy goes all the way from the earth below you, through your body, and up above 4 or 5 feet. And just feel yourself held, steady and sure, from above and below. And then have one more breath, all the way from earth to sky and back down. And in the next breath, bring yourself back to the room you're in, the chair you're sitting on, the bed you're lying on, the space you're in, and gently open your eyes. Great. Welcome back and welcome. So for those of you that have just joined us, please say hello in the chat. We'd love to hear where you're dialing in from, where you're zooming in from. We'd love to hear how you're doing this morning, scale of 1 to 10. We'd like to keep the chat active, as you know, those of you that have been coming. It's a really active experience. It's a participatory experience, including my puppy who's barking in the background. I'll take care of that in a minute. And yeah, we like questions, engagement. We'd like to hear from you, what's happening. And I'm really, really excited to have Lisa here today. Lisa, oh, you know what? I'm just gonna pick up my puppy. I don't know if you can hear him, but I'm gonna pick him up. One sec. All right. If I hold him, he won't bark. So let me see. I'll show him. There he is. Hello. Anyway, really excited to have Lisa here this morning. I usually say how long I've known people when they arrive, and I don't know, Lisa, it's been a long time.
It's been a long time. 10 or 15 years anyway.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Exactly. Mm-hmm. Lisa is a really amazing, powerful woman, healer, intuitive, teacher, spiritual guide. I've had really amazing sessions with you that have been really meaningful to me, and I'm just thrilled to have you here.
Thank you so much,
Robyn. You to share more if you want, related to like who you are in the world, and I'm turning it over to you.
Thank you so much, Robyn. I'm so delighted that you invited me to be part of this beautiful group that you've created, and it's got such a warm, happy feeling, and I think we need that right now. And I want to say hello to all of you. Some of you guys I know. I see some familiar faces and names in the group, so hi everybody. I'm Lisa Campion from zooming in from Hopedale, Massachusetts, and I work as it's a funny thing to say and kind of a cool thing, that I've been working as a psychic since I was 19 years old. And yeah, and I started doing readings then, and then I learned counseling and psychology because I wanted to bring that more healing into the sessions that I was doing. Then about 20 years ago, I started studying energy medicine and Reiki. I've been teaching Reiki and writing about Reiki for quite a while now. I also teach in an energy medicine school with my business partner, Reese Thomas. We've now 15 years into teaching in the energy medicine school together. And I feel like my mission in life is to train psychics, empaths, and healers to fully step into their gifts, because I feel like the world needs all the healers it can get now more than ever. And we are in this intense opening, change, spiritual awakening that's happening on the planet right now. And I believe deeply there's a big opportunity. here if we, as sensitives, intuitives, healers, learn how to step into that space and really actualize our gifts. We can be of service to other people right now, and that's what I like. And I notice that people are really opening, so their psychic is opening, their spiritual journey is opening, they're becoming aware of their intuition, and sometimes that's easy for people and sometimes it's not. So I like sort of being able to show up as a guide or a mentor during that opening, and assist people do it more gracefully with more fun. So thank you so much, Robyn, for creating this group and for inviting me to be part of it. What are we doing? Are we doing an interview, or am I leading something? What is it that you would like to do next?
I noticed that pause there. I had myself on mute. Well, I would love to, you mentioned when we chatted before this that the topic that came to mind that was most alive for you was how to facilitate and support people in using their intuition to navigate this time of so much change and transition. Yeah. And I think that's a skill that, of course, all of us have the capacity to learn. And I personally believe and know that all of us are intuitive and psychic, but some channels are more open than others. And, that has a lot of factors related to it. But I think that's something we actually haven't addressed so directly in these daily intimacy gatherings. And I think that would be really, really valuable. So yeah, I know I'm using that myself, and happy to talk about that a bit in terms of how, and I would love to hear.
Sure. Yeah, it's such a great time. And I think it's important too, because we don't really know what's going to happen next right now. We're at this unprecedented time in history where we can't really always look to the past or look to our analytical self to figure out where we're emerging into. And a lot of us are having profound and sudden changes in our lives right now. And our intuition can be a very powerful guide to help us through this time. And it's interesting to me, like in my own psychic life, that I can't always see the future right now. Like it's like, I feel like we're creating the future as we're moving sort of almost like day by day. We're creating what's happening, what's going to happen next. And for me, my intuitive system, my inner guidance, so intuition, the way that I define it is that intuition is our inner guidance system, and psychic abilities, our ability to speak to sources from outside of ourselves, like Robyn brought into the meditation, angels or guides. So psychic is connecting to the outside, those outside guidance helpers, and our intuition is our inner guidance. And what's so important, I think, about intuition right now is that it's how our soul just speaks directly to us, and this is a time when it's very powerful to be guided by our soul. And our personality, our mind, our mental self may really not know how to handle this, or might actually be freaking out in some way, like having a big reaction to what's going on. And for me, that's day by day. Like I have good days and bad days. And on a good day, I can see all the opportunity. And on a bad day, I'm just like freaked out, like it's scary and upsetting what's happening in the world. And when we use our intuition as a guidepost, or we do things in our life that help develop our intuition, I think we can receive that direct guidance from our soul. And intuition comes through 3 channels for most people. And the first channel is your physical body. So what's happening inside your body gives you a very strong intuitive sense. And your body never lies. It always knows what's true. It always knows what's real. And it's very much geared to helping you stay safe and figuring out where the safety, what's safe for you. Then the next part of intuition is, so if you know anything about the chakras, that's the first chakra. And the next part is the second chakra, the navel chakra, which would be more our emotional self. So our emotions are also giving us an incredible constant feedback loop about what's happening, how we feel. And it can be, sometimes I have a good feeling or a bad feeling about something, but it can also be our actual emotional states, like what emotions are running through us at any given time. And then the third part of intuition is the third chakra, the solar plexus chakra. And that is the gut knowing. I don't know why I know, I just know. And that gut knowing, the third chakra sort of manages and organizes the information that that the other two chakras are, the other two intuitive senses are giving us, and kind of organizes and arranges that for us in this sort of in the belly, deep knowing. I don't know why I know, I just know. And when those three senses are in agreement, which is usually most of the time, we can be pretty sure that our intuitive sense is telling us something really powerful that we need to listen to. And I'm sure you've all had the experience of the conflict that can sometimes happen between our intuition and our mind, you know, because our mental self is usually not very aligned to our intuition. It has its own program. It has, you know, our thoughts and everything can sometimes be really in direct conflict with our feelings. So your gut might be telling you right now that you're safe, that this is good, that you're going to be okay, you know, that this there's a greater purpose for what's happening right now. This is sort of part of the evolution of humanity, and your gut can be telling you that. But if then you spend 2 minutes, this is what happened to me this morning, which is why I'm bringing it up. When you spend 2 minutes watching CNN or whatever, you know, the news feed has, and your mind's like, oh my God, like this is a terrible thing, terrible thing. Look at everybody, the death toll is crazy, and your mind can sort of spin through mental channels. And the way that our energy is meant to flow is that your soul tells your intuition and your heart, and then your heart, that part of you, should then direct your mind towards the action. Like, so most of us run that process backwards, and we let our mind call the shots. And then you have a life that looks good on paper, or you have the life that your parents wanted you to have, or society tells you is good to do, and may not give you sort of a deep soulful experience that I think so many of us are looking for. And at some point we turn that upside down, and we then let our soul speak to our gut, to our intuition, and to our heart, and then we come to kind of a knowing or decision. Then we tell our mind to go figure out how to make that happen. And that's the proper use of the mind, actually. So I think it's really, does that make sense, Robyn?
That's really important what you just said, and I wonder if you would say it again.
Sure.
Even though you just said it twice, because I think for people to just really get that that's actually the way, the flow of energy.
So yeah, thank you. So the flow really should be that your soul, your higher self, whatever you want to call it, I tend to call it the soul self, but it's got a lot of different names. That part of you is going to deliver you a message through your intuitive sense, through your body, through your emotions, through your gut. And then we can even bring it up to the heart, because a lot of times we feel it up here in the heart. And then that energy, that information, that should then direct your mind to move forward. Your mind is a servant of your heart and your soul. And when we do that, so your mind might say, like, hey, I'm going to put this Zoom group together. Your soul may be telling you, I'm going to put this group together. People need to talk about their feelings. We can bring people together. So I'm going to create this beautiful place where people can connect. That's your soul told you to do that. And your intuition told you, and then you gave your mind a task of figuring out how to make that happen. Right. And when we live life that way, we live a very ensouled life, a very soulful, amazing, rich, juicy life. And we have to sometimes break the conditioning of letting your mind pick, because your mind it's intelligent, it has its own form of intelligence, but it's not able to really tap the wisdom of your soul. And that's why a lot of the religions and spiritual practices have something to get your mind out of the way. Like, here, do this mantra or chant this thing, for a while to get your mind occupied. It's like giving your, I just bought my puppy. I just got a puppy, and I just bought my puppy that little thing, the little Kong that you put the peanut butter and the treat in it, and you give it, and it's in the corner, and it's like for quite a long time. Like, mantra practice is like that for your mind, and when we give our mind, it's like the bone to chew on, then it kind of gets out of the way, and it opens up this connection for this deeper part of us, which I think is what most of us are looking for.
First of all, that was beautiful. Thank you for repeating it. And second of all, yes, love the metaphor. Holly has a question in the chat. When you bring up to the heart, that's the fourth chakra. Is that part of intuition?
Yeah, definitely it is part of intuition. And our heart, thank you, Holly. It's a great question. And the heart is interesting because it's really the balancing point of our entire chakra system. And really it's sort of the direct access point that the soul has inside of our chakra system. So the heart is like looking at things relationally. So a lot of times we get intuitive information about our relationships, what's happening in our interconnectedness with people, what's happening in the meta text between people, like what somebody said and what they really meant, or that kind of thing, that underground or energetic, emotional connection between two people. The intuitive gift of the heart is to be able to read that language, to read that side of things, and it's really accurate. So you can sort of trust your heart to give you accurate information about what's happening in your relational world. Super important to include that into the mix. Yeah. And then our upper chakras, our upstairs chakras, the sixth, seventh chakra, and even the throat chakra, are a little more geared to our psychic ability. They're how the chakras we use to connect to the sources outside of ourselves that bring in your connection with your guides, your angels, your dead relatives, whoever your team of spirit helpers are. We're sort of connecting up there, and that's a different skill set in a way that we need to activate that. And I think the best way to activate your intuition, if you want to develop it more, because it's like a muscle, we need to practice it. There's a couple of things you really need to do. And the first one is to begin to pay attention. I always said if I ever wrote a book about this, it would be called Pay Attention. And I like something like a journal. Like when I do psychic development with my students, I'll have them create like a my psychic journal or something. And what you're going to do in there is write down your hits, write down your dreams. If you pull cards, you're going to write that down. Because whatever we pay attention to tends to build and grow. We all know that, right? So we have to begin by paying attention to the psychic, to the intuitive responses we get, and they can be subtle. They might be, and they're very persistent. So a lot of times when I teach psychic development, people are like, "Oh, they're thinking it's going to be some big giant deal, like some angel comes down from heaven and blows a big giant horn in your ear, and you fall on the floor, and you have a fit, and you foam at the mouth, or something, like something really big, crazy is going to happen." And most of the time, it's subtle and continuous. Like, "Oh, that's been happening my whole life. I just thought that was no big deal," and because this whole part of us is just part of our humanity, it's part of our humanness, that we all have this. So your intuitive stuff might be really subtle, like oh, take your umbrella today, it's going to rain out, or take the back roads, there's going to be traffic on the highway, or join Robyn's group because that's going to be really fulfilling for me. Like your intuitive self may be telling you these things, and so that we have to pay attention. We have to learn how to stop and notice, and then see if we get in a disagreement with our mind about it. The second thing we have to do that's just as important is we have to act on our hits. And not every time, not 100% of the time, not every crazy whim that you have, but more often than not, 51% of the time, like we have to kind of put our money where our mouth is and honor our intuition and act on it. And that is also developing the muscle that we have. And I think sometimes like our guides want us to start there, or our soul wants us to start with that, because if we can't sort of follow the little things, like get milk, you're in the supermarket, don't forget to buy milk, or take your umbrella today, or join Robyn's group, like we can't develop these, like follow these sort of small ones, I don't know if we can handle the big ones. And sometimes people have resistance to their intuition because a lot of times our soul is going to deliver us a message that our personal self doesn't want to hear. That can be difficult, or your personal self really likes the comfort zone, likes the known world. Like it's sort of like your inner child that wants the things that are comfy and familiar, and your soul self doesn't have a big attachment to that. Your soul is always pushing you. I always say, like, my soul has its foot on my ass and is pushing me like out out of my comfort zone, and I think that's true. So sometimes we have to kind of handle the resistance that our personal self will have against your soul knows that all the things that are good for you lie outside your comfort zone and is leading you there. And we have to sometimes do like some, softer inner work around the part of us that's nervous about moving into that bigger space.
Oh man, that is so true, Lisa.
Yeah,
I'm right in that space where the guidance is so pushing me
me too.
out of my comfort zone.
Yeah.
So listening to you, I'm like, okay, Robyn.
Feel you, honey. I spend like 5 minutes in my comfort zone, really. And then I think people who live a life that's very aligned with their life purpose don't get a lot of time in the comfort zone. So, it's like, oh, do a radio show 2 years ago. And I just did my 130th radio show yesterday. And I have to tell you that up until like the 100th, it scared me every time I was nervous,
Wow.
and,
Wow.
then write a book. All right. That was like one of the biggest things I ever did. And I thought it was going to kill me. I thought it was going to, I wasn't going to survive that process. It took me to my edge more than anything else I've ever done.
Wow.
And the good news is the second one isn't so hard. So now my second book is at the publisher and I'm like, okay, I've got this one. I've got it. And then all of a sudden last week, I get this email from a TV producer, and the TV producer's like, would you like to be on TV? And I had to go, yes. So my sole answer was yes, I would like to be on TV. And then I had to go like breathe into a paper bag. And like, I was literally like, like hyperventilating and freaking out for, I don't know, like an hour. And then I was walking around the house holding my teddy bear and like, just like, and I know it's going to be great. It's, I'll be so proud of myself when it's finished. And that's how I know, like, I say that to myself a lot. I'll be so proud of you when you're finished.
That's a good idea, actually. Congratulations, by the way.
Yeah.
Mitchell has a question that I just didn't want to miss it. I was just sort of scrolling back. Is the mind our ego that is wanting to take over intuition? Just clarifying language.
Yeah, thank you, Mitchell. Such a great question. So the mind is really connected to the ego, the personal self, I call it, or you can call it small self if you're a Buddhist. The inner child sometimes is in there too. It can have a lot of different names, and our mind, that's a very functional part of us. Like we need that, especially as human beings. Like I always say, you can like let go of your ego when you're dead. You don't need one in heaven, I'm pretty sure. Or when you reach enlightenment, you don't need that part of yourself. But as functioning human beings here on the planet, we need our ego. We need our mind. And the mind can sometimes come in to play devil's advocate to your intuition. And I think like a really balanced person has sort of a blend of these parts of them operating together. Like your intuitive self sometimes needs to be tempered by logic or and analysis, and I think the most powerful people in the world sort of pull on both of these sides of ourselves. Like you can think of it as the masculine and feminine side of you, whatever. There's lots of ways you can frame that. But I think, it's not to throw the baby out with the bathwater and say that intuition is better than logic or an analytical kind of frame. I think we need both, and that in our culture, many people are overthrown to the mind, to the ego, to the, A plus B equals C analysis, and need to develop this intuitive side of themselves to come into a balanced state. So, and I also think right now, in terms of where we are in the world, our mind, yes, we need to be logical. We need to do what the things we know we need to do. We wash our hands, we wear a mask outside, we do the isolating that we feel like is right for us. So we need to do those things, yes. And we can further support ourselves by following our intuition I sometimes think of intuition as, well, you're trying to cross a raging river in the middle of the fog. It feels a bit like that right now, right? And your intuition may be like guiding you. Okay, I can see this next stone that I have to step on is over there, so I'm going to do that. Boom, we got it. And then when you go into the next place, you can find the next stone. And I feel like that's the energy a little bit that we're in right now. And for me, my intuition helps me feel secure and have faith and trust that I'm going to be able to figure out the next steps involved in whatever wherever my journey is taking me.
Thanks, Lisa. Linda, would you like to unmute and ask a question?
Hi, everyone. Hi, Lisa.
Hi.
I teach kindergarten, and I've had a thought for quite a while, just as a teacher with young children, but also for myself. When I think of the inner child, it was a time of our lives when we were pre-verbal with a lot of vocabulary. And learning this, there are a lot of concepts which you're sharing, but I have a wonder about the pre-verbal state of us. In December, another class in our kindergarten community, a little boy died. And we all gathered together to discover how to speak to young children about death, that their friend had died and he wasn't coming back. And I had the most amazing conversations with children for many, many weeks about this, until they felt like I watched them be ready to let it go. And they didn't have words. So what they were doing were, like, for example, our amaryllis had died that we had planted, and they noticed a little seed that was inside. And they said that their friend Dennis was being reborn from the seed inside, just like the amaryllis flower. And I also think about our body and our soul receiving messages when our body and our ego and our mind drop away. And even like when you're saying that your soul is like pushing you like that, there are no words to describe it. So I think when we get so quiet like that, that we tap into the sensation of like a language of sensation. Like even like sadness or madness is a word, but it's really a body sensation. Yeah. So even as infants, we were experiencing all of these, but we didn't know we were angry or sad. Right. So I think that's just my overall wonder for you, is just if you could speak a little bit about that, what our bodies are communicating, that are like, we all speak different languages in the world, like, but we all have these feelings inside of our bodies. And our souls are kind of laughing at all that because I think they don't need any of that. Just like,
yeah, so many things that I could say about that. It was a fantastic conversation. So our part of the reason I believe we incarnate is so that we get our emotions and our sensory, our body, you know, which brings with it physical sensations and emotions, because when we have those, we have the capacity to experience things that when we're in soul world, we only can have the concept of it, you know. And that's like the difference between eating reading a recipe and eating the meal. If you want to eat the meal and have the experience of that, you got to have one of these things, you know. And so there's kind of a beauty in that, and we can learn a lot about intuition from children. So children are, especially little kids like that, are so naturally intuitive. It's their natural state, you know, and that we sort of squish it out of them as we domesticate them, and we kind of make them choose their mental processes, their mind, and their over this other side of them sometimes. And I mean, not all kids do that, but there's tendency that we go that way. And a lot of the things that children do are highly beneficial for us to remember and to learn from. For example, creativity is one of the best things we can do to awaken our intuition, to connect with our intuition. Play is another one. So when we're in a state of play, when we're in a state of creativity, which is like these pure soul states really that children take naturally, we have we become highly intuitive, highly emotional, highly sensate, and that allows us an incredible opportunity to get downloads from our soul. And we're in a constant download from our soul, and a lot of people believe that creativity is like one of the most pure soul states we can have on the planet, you know. And I would put play in there as well. And so that's normal for children. It would be fantastic for us to like learn that. And we sadly as adults forget, or we don't value always the, you know, we don't see those things as valuable, or I don't have time to be creative, or I don't have time to play. I got stuff to do, you know. And that that's too bad, because we could really, the other thing too is that our most intuitive way, I can frame this for you, is that our most intuitive places come when we're in the alpha state, the alpha brainwave, you know, and that when we're in beta, when we're being logical, analytical, you know, it's sort of our conscious analytical mind. And then just below that is the alpha state, where we engage when we're playing, when we're doing creative things, when we're washing the dishes or walking the dogs or doing some sort of meditative. And I think children spend a lot of time there naturally. Does that make sense to you, that they're kind of alpha brainwave creatures? And we as evolving spiritual beings can learn a lot by figuring out what works for us to switch into that state so we can spend more time there. Does that make sense to you?
Yes.
Yeah.
Thank you for that question.
Thank you very much. Thank you. Yes. Yeah. And it's kind of like the inner game of tennis, when we're just playing a game and we're going in a flow. I miss them so much in this remote teaching, but we kind of try to approximate that with Zoom. A friend had said we try to find ways to share playfulness and smiles. And it's really quite extraordinary to use that as a creative spot. But you're helping so much to understand this, because I think a lot of us don't always trust those feelings that we feel, and to learn how to honor that.
I know, I was talking to somebody else about this last night, who told me that she was having a really hard time with her intuition, and that it wasn't until she did a lot of therapy and emotional work that she was actually able to find the part of her that was intuitive. Because I do believe that we have to be able to connect to the emotional side of us in order to really, you know, fully embrace our intuition, because so much of it comes through the emotional channel. And if that's a problem for you, if you have trauma, unresolved trauma, or you have, like, you know, you've sort of learned over time to shut down your emotional state, then we need to work on that a little bit to open it up.
Yeah. Yeah. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, Sean, if the mind is fractured and emotions, attachments are there, such as relationships, how can you connect to love and discern what is love and what's infatuation? How do you dissolve your dualities and hypocrisies? Geez, wow.
Yeah, big question.
That is a big question.
No pressure, Lisa.
It's a really good question. It's a really hard one, because we can get into these states, like our emotional states, which are like an aspect of our trauma or our, you know, wounding, you know, like how do we tell sort of the wounded side of our emotion versus our intuitive emotions? And what I can tell you is, for me, I know it's an intuition when I'm non-reactive. So it's reactivity is the difference there. When I'm reactive, I'm triggered, I'm freaking out, then I know it's not like a real hit. It's my emotional turmoil or my stuff that I'm working through. And when the emotions, even if they're strong emotions, I'm not feeling reactive about them. You know, I could feel really sad, but I just feel calm about my sadness, or I'm owning my sadness, or you know, I might feel love, like real love. When it's happening, there's like a non-reactivity about it, you know. So for example, I worked with a mother once, doing some psychic development, intuitive development for her, and she was probably one of the most nervous mothers I've ever met. Like really, like nervous, anxious, like freaking out a little bit about her kids, like, and she was really struggling with this. How do I tell the difference between my internal anxious neurosis freak out and what's really, if something's really going on with my kids? And a hit is what psychics call like an aha moment, when we have when we get a psychic piece of information and we kind of get like, oh my gosh, like how do we tell the difference between a real psychic knowing or a real psychic experience and our own inner neurosis? Okay, so thank you, great question. What's a hit? That this woman who was pretty nervous mother, she said one day in the middle of the night, she woke up, it was like 2 o'clock in the morning, and she was completely, had no feeling. She felt very calm. She didn't feel any anxiety. She wasn't feeling any neurosis. And she just got out of bed. She put her shoes on. She put her coat on. She got in the car, drove around the countryside. She lived in the middle of the country on this random road. And 20 minutes later, she found her son sitting on the side of the road with no gas in the car and no cell phone. And she said the whole time she felt no anxiety, no nerve, not her normal neurosis wasn't there. Her normal anxiety wasn't there. And so I think and it was to her a revelation, because she realized, okay, a real hit has this calmness, this non-reactivity about it, even though it could possibly be something that you would be upset about. And I'm going to turf this one to you, back to Robyn a little bit, and see what she's the relationship expert. So what do you think about that, Sean? How would you answer that, Robyn?
The difference between love and infatuation and how to navigate that space. I would agree with you. I'll make one more distinction, I guess. I think that sometimes infatuation has like an energy of like, I want something. I want, that kind of thing. I need to make something happen. And true love, which is an experience that, I hope all of us have, but true love is a resting place. It's a peaceful place. It's a grounded space. There's nothing to do. There's nothing to seek. It's just there, and it feels awesome, but there's no attachments to it. It's just, yes, it feels good. It's in the heart. Infatuation is that reactive energy. It can also feel good sometimes. I think most of the time it feels really vulnerable and painful in some ways, but to me, that's the difference.
I always think infatuation feels itchy.
Itchy, yeah, right. I just can't scratch that. Just can't get it. Yeah. Great question.
Yeah, so
great
good
response, Lisa. Thanks, Sean. I see Arlene has her hand up, and I'm going to unmute you, Arlene, so you can ask your question. Oh, there we go. You should be unmuted now, unless we did that at the same time. Nope. Okay, you go. There you go.
Okay. Two points I wanted to make. One is I'm very aware that Indigenous cultures cultivated intuition. And I find that in our culture, a lot of times, what kind of caused people's intuition to flourish was growing up in abusive families and like the hypervigilance that resulted in.
Yeah.
That's number one. And number two, I just wanted to share an experience I had yesterday, which was I had to write an article, and I went to bed and it was a subject I knew nothing about. And when I woke up in the morning, in my brain was the title, the ideas, and the outline. And I've had that happen with poetry before, but I've never had that happen with like a work assignment. And I was so grateful for that.
That's so good. That's great. Yeah, our dream state is often a place where many people receive messages, psychic information, intuitive information. Dreams are often a place where people that have a visual psychic ability often there's a connection between that and people with an active dream life. And there's a lot of ways you can work that consciously. To learn to remember your dreams is a beautiful thing to do. And there's techniques you can do to do that. You can ask yourself a question in your journal. I learned 2 techniques. You write the question and put it under your pillow with a request that you dream more about it in your sleep at night, or you can drink a glass of water before you go to bed. As I'm drinking this glass of water, I'm ingesting the answer, and I'll wake up in the morning and know the answer. So there's a few things you can do to facilitate that experience. It's very cool that you brought that up. And Arlene, I also agree with you completely about hypervigilance and trauma in children. So a lot of times children will learn an empathic response to, so being like a psychic sponge, so being really able to feel what other people are feeling as an empath can be a response to trauma, and intuition too, as children learn to kind of put out feelers into the environment, even at a very, very young age, is like, is mommy safe or daddy safe today? Is this a good mommy day or a bad mommy day? Like that, that kind of thing. And it's a powerful survival mechanism, or an adaptive ability that we can have, which, I mean, it's sad that we have to experience trauma to get there, but it can be something that also helps us survive in those situations. So it can be a blessing. And I think that it also depends on your family. So my parents were hippies. They were like Unitarian like hippie types, and they were artists. So they were really like a lot of art, you know, it was like a looser crowd. So I grew up in a very environment that was very accepting of this kind of, you know, these kind of experiences. So I feel like I didn't get kind of smushed as much as other people can. So I'm God bless my Unitarian hippie parents. Thank you, Mom and Dad.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mom and Dad. And thank you for your question. That I hope I answered it. It was a great question.
Beautiful.
Yeah.
Linda has another question in the chat, and I just want to also encourage anybody who has questions to put them in the chat or raise your hand virtually, and I'll recognize you.
Okay, so thanks, Linda. So can I speak more about the calmness as a guide instead of anxiety and worry? Yeah. So anxiety and worry and sort of any of those reactive emotions tend to be more from our you know, like the personal self. And the personal self has a lot, you know, a lot of value, like I said before. And when those come up, when anxiety and worry comes up, maybe it's the inner child that needs attention, or the emotional side of us, or some call for attention, for care, for self-compassion, for addressing directly our emotional states, which are always valuable and important, right? So so it's good. Like, you know, I've got my puppy. She's kind of an anxious puppy because she came from a rescue, and I can tell she's trying so hard to be a good dog. Like, she really wants to please us. And she's also anxious and worried because she's had a tough life. She spent most of her life in a crate. She's trying to figure it out. She's a little anxious. And so I know if I deal directly with her anxiety and calm her, like just love her and calm her and tell her she's a good dog and snuggle her and everything, when I do that, she calms down. And when we do that with ourselves, we can, you know, we can directly address those parts of us which need to be, you know, handled in a compassionate way. And then when we have calmed it's almost impossible to get intuitive information when you're feeling and reactive, which is why as a psychic, it's always easier to read for other people. Or as an intuitive person in your own life, you might be listening to your friends talk and like about some conflict or problem they're in, and to you the answer is obvious. You can see the answer 5 miles down the road. It's like screaming to you how obvious it is, and they're like, I can't figure out what to do, you know. And you might have been in that situation yourself, though. When you're in a moment of calm, you've handled your feelings. When you're in the moment of calm and you stop, you go wash the dishes or you go walk the dog, and boom, the answer comes to you. Because strong emotional triggers always disconnect us from our intuitive self. That's why people use divination tools. That's why people use angel cards, pendulum, I Ching, tarot cards, whatever, because I do it. When I'm triggered about something and I can't make my own connection, my own psychic or intuitive connection, I fall back. I call my other intuitive friends to do readings for me, or I pull out my divination tools to help me create a bridge between myself and my guidance. So Sean said creativity and being childlike. I find the ego may prevent you from doing certain practices of dance, sing, and play. How are you able to overcome the ego so you can connect to your true self? Honestly, that's a fantastic question, Sean. You've got a lot of good ones. I think
That's
we need
a lifelong question, right?
Yeah, it is. And I think we need support, you know, so having a supportive community, having a tribe of people where it's okay to do that encourage you to do that love that about you, that, you know, and right now it might be a Zoom community, or talking to your inner child and telling your inner little guy that your little inner self that you need, that it's okay to break the conditioning of our parents, because our inner children will feel a lot of shame, guilt, and fear when we have to break the programming that we received as children. So we have to like, it's going to be okay. No one's going to get mad at you if you dance and sing and play. AW, you know, and then you do it. And then maybe also find a community that will support you in dancing. Find some people to dance with you. Yeah. So, okay. So the sway test, Robyn, is that what you wanted? who's asking about that?
Well, I was just thinking about that, but also I see Erin. Lisa, how do you use your intuition to balance serving yourself or your community? Yeah, and I was just thinking, Lisa, if we had time, I don't know if you use that, but the very basic
Yeah,
kind
yeah,
of using your body
absolutely. Yeah. Do
so
you
that
want to
people have a tool that they can practice potentially.
talk about that? I love that. I love I use a pendulum because I've used my pendulum for a long time, and that's another way. Some people use dowsing rods, you know. And some people use kinesiology or the body centered way of asking yourself. And so the sway test is a really powerful way to do that. And the way that I learned it is that you sort of ground and center yourself. You could do a meditation like Robyn we did today in the beginning here. And then you kind of ask yourself, okay, show me yes. And maybe it's the forward tip, show me no, maybe it's the backward tip. And then you can begin to ask yourself questions, all of these things have a little bit of a limitation because they rely on yes or no questions. So if you're going to learn any kind of kinesiology or penduluming or dowsing rods, we have to learn the art of asking the right kind of question, because it's hard to break down the complexity of our self into a black and white yes or no, but it can be done if we learn how to do it. Anything else you want to add about that?
Yeah, I'll just add that I'm just thinking for this time, during this time, it's like we're all asking many questions. And one question is, what can I do to support myself? What do I need right now to calm myself down, when we get into our heads and we're anxious? And like just taking a really simple example, I have a couple of herbal remedies that I like, but if I'm feeling anxious, maybe I don't know which one is best for my body in the moment. So I do exactly what you said. I stand, I always do it standing because it's more clear for me when I'm standing, ground for just a moment. And then I'll just take a bottle in my hand or just think about it. And then I just notice, is my body leaning towards the back away from it? Then I take that as a no, because that's what my yes and no is. And if it's leaning towards the front, then I know this is a good remedy for me in this moment. And it's simpler, obviously. I mean, when you're talking about taking something or, it's the yes, no, it's either yes or no. And obviously the nuances are, I don't use the sway test for things that are nuanced, but, what would be good for me right now? Should I take a nap or a walk? Like I'm feeling tired. Sometimes a walk helps me feel better from being tired. Sometimes a nap helps me. So which one in this moment? So I just think it's a really wonderful tool that can be developed over time and practiced.
Great. Love it. So Erin asked, how do you use your intuition to balance serving yourself or your community? For me, there's a lot of learning to develop my intuition and really live from that place has created a deep connection to my body, my emotions, and my selfhood, which is really what our intuitive self is. And so I find that the more I'm connected to those parts of myself directly, the more I sort of know what I need to balance myself. Like I know I'm caretaking myself, I'm aware of myself, I'm advocating for myself, I'm doing a lot of self-care, right? And then for the community, like I often feel like a push. This is something that happens to me a lot. So I've got a very strong intuition right when this all started that I should start doing this series of Facebook Lives. I resisted it. I don't really want to do that. The technology it's nervous making for me. It's a little harder for me to be on video than I've been on radio for a long time. And I just got it every day. Do it. In fact, Robyn's going to be on mine tomorrow. So tune in. Yeah. Are you on my Facebook Live tomorrow?
Not tomorrow, but soon.
Soon. Okay. Oh yeah. Right. Soon. Okay. So, soon. Yeah. So she's going to be on there. So stay tuned for that. And so that was an intuition, and I felt like I did it as a call for service. Like that's how I felt called to serve my people. And I don't know if that answered your question, Erin, but I think it can really help us.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Thank you so much, Lisa. We have 2 more minutes, and I know one more question came through. How can I expand my horizons and be more open is basically what Pat was asking in 30 seconds or 60 seconds.
Well, I would say, like, you know, you can tune into yourself right now and feel like you know, what of those things would be calling to you right now. Is it Reiki? Is it creativity? Is it a musical practice? All of those things: creativity, play, meditation, spiritual practice. When in doubt, meditate is a little bit of my fallback. If I don't know what to do, I sit down and meditate until I know what to do.
Yes, exactly. Yeah. I agree with that 100%. We can never go wrong when we meditate.
That's right.
Yeah, quiet the mind. Oh, thank you so much, Lisa. This has been a treasure.
Yes, thank you so much.
Yeah, you're welcome. Your website is just your name, right?
LisaCampion.com. Yeah, come in, visit me. I have a pretty good gift right now available on my website. It's a 4-hour class on how to manage your energy if you're an empath or a sensitive. So it's a good one if you feel like that's an issue that you're dealing with, and how do we manage ourselves, especially during this time. If we're sensitive, it's a bit of a challenge. So it's a pretty in-depth 4-hour class. It's my gift to you if you come and visit my website.
That is so just so valuable right now for those of us that are sensitive and feeling all the energy out there. So thank you for that. Yeah, so I'll be sending the recording out to everybody here and everybody who's not here in this moment but has signed up. And also anything that you want to share, Lisa, I will send that out in the email as well. We got some thank yous in the chat. This was fantastic. I so need to hear much of this today, says Doug. And thank you, Robyn, for creating and holding this space. You're so welcome, all of you. I'm just going to put the, oh, nope, that's the wrong thing. Delete. I was just going to add the chat, the link from the beginning. I'm just going to give me 1 second, please. I'm just going to put it there again. That's for the continuing daily intimacy, which I have decided to do on Tuesday mornings at 9 a.m. And so please keep coming, and let's keep the continuity going for this, even if it's not daily. There's just a little more space and spaciousness in between, and we'll meet weekly. Also, I'm really excited about tomorrow. Tomorrow, I sat with Friday for a long time thinking, okay, who am I going to invite? And I sat and meditated and nobody came into my mind. So I realized it must be me. So as my throat chakra, that's so funny. Anyway, yeah, so tomorrow I'll be with you for the hour, and please come because I have an exciting announcement for something that's coming up, and I'm going to do a really cool wheel type raffle to offer that to one person as a gift. So if you're here tomorrow, you will be put into that bucket. And yeah, that's all I have to say for today, except to have a very blessed day. And thank you so much again, Lisa.
Thank you, Robyn. Thank all of you guys for being here. It was so lovely to hang out with you this morning.
Yeah, thank you. All right, everybody, I'll leave the chat open for a few minutes, and see you tomorrow. Mwah.
Thanks, everyone.